Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Conservative public safety critic Raquel Dancho explains in more detail why she was kicked out of question period last week. The men accused of mischief at the Coutts border earlier this year were back in Lethbridge court today. We have the latest. And following the huge teddy bear toss at the NMAC Centre last week, the Lethbridge Hurricanes presented the stuffed toys to some very appreciative kids today.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The three men who were allegedly involved in the Coutts border blockade and charged earlier this year were back in Lethbridge court on Monday morning. Angela Stewart has been covering this story and is down at the courthouse. Angela, were there some frustrated people in the courtroom earlier today?
Yeah, Hal, that is right. There was a lot of frustration and anger as the matters of Alex Van Herk, Marco Van Hugenbos, and George Jansen have been adjourned once again. The three accused were all present in court Monday morning, along with some supporters as they awaited the outcome.
Absolutely disappointment in a justice system that likes to essentially play games, is the way I see it. It's broken. But this was expected. At
a previous court appearance on November 4th, the trio requested to be tried by judge and jury. Van Hugenbos says the delay in starting the trial is frustrating on so many levels.
It's hanging over our heads. I have a family, I have a business, obviously our own situations, but the fact that you're getting exposed to a system that has many flaws and that is out and being influenced by a political element, it seems.
Van Herk, who tried to make a statement in court but was not allowed, says a lot of time is being wasted and taxpayers are suffering for it.
You know what, we were protesting our fundamental right. The border was already closed when we got there. The mandates they imposed on Canadians, on Albertans, was illegal. And we were standing up against the tyranny that was coming upon us.
The trio have all been charged with mischief over $5,000 for their alleged involvement in the blockade. Van Herk says he doesn't understand why the charges are placed against them.
They chose to charge us with mischief. There's a reason for that, obviously. And that's what I'm trying to understand as to what that reason is. What do they have behind, or what's their motive to charge us with this?
Well, the accused say that their involvement earlier this year was justified and they believe a jury will find them not guilty. All three will be back in court on January 9th, 2023. Hal?
Thanks so much, Angela. Lethbridge police lay charges in connection with a robbery at a Southside convenience store. Police say on November the 18th around 5 p.m., a masked male entered the Circle K on 6th Avenue South holding a knife. He went behind the counter, stole cash, cigarettes and lotto tickets before fleeing the scene. Fortunately, no one was injured. And thanks to surveillance footage, the suspect was identified and caught on December the 8th. 24-year-old Terry Wiseman of Lethbridge faces a wide range of charges, including robbery. He was released from custody and is scheduled to appear in court on January the 16th. Conservative public safety critic Raquel Dancho took to social media to explain why she was kicked out of question period last week. Dancho has been very vocal against the Trudeau Liberals' Bill C-21, which discusses banning certain rifles.
They said that Conservatives continue to be part of the problem. And they were insinuating that we're being obstructionist about a path forward for the largest hunting rifle ban in Canadian history. So I yelled out as a heckle. I said, "That's a lie. You're lying." I yelled it out. My emotions got the better of me a little bit. It's been a long 3 weeks. You're not supposed to call anyone a liar or say anyone is lying in the House of Commons. That is against the rules. So I broke the rules there. So then there was a big uproar from the Liberals, all offended that I dare call them out for lying about the hunting rifle ban, as they have been, as you've seen, for weeks. For weeks they've been lying, and they know the truth. They know that this is the largest hunting rifle ban in Canadian history. So I called them out for that, broke the rules, which was wrong of me, but it just, I got really fired up and I had enough of their lies. And so the speaker got up and he said, member of Kildonan St. Paul, which is me, you need to withdraw your comment. So, I stood up and I said, I withdraw, no problem. But then he gets back up and says, and you need to apologize. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm just telling the truth.
The Trudeau government is launching public consultation for a sustainable agriculture strategy. Officials say it's needed to help provide a coordinated approach to improving the agriculture sector's environmental performance and sustainability. Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bebeau says it will help Canada stay on track when it comes to environment and climate goals. Ken Coles is the Executive Director of Farming Smarter here in Lethbridge, and he says the federal government consulting with farmers is a good idea.
I think there's a fair bit of tension within our current government direction right now as it pertains to environmental and agricultural policies. I think that we're sort of at a point in the development of the industry that we really need to make sure that we're coming up with good policies. Yes, all farmers care about the land, they care about the soil, but they also have businesses that they need to be profitable at. And we need to make sure that the environmental policies are based on honest to goodness, real science.
Agriculture Minister Bebeau says the strategy would be separate from the agricultural policy framework agreements that were already signed. This is more to provide direction to future ag programs and policies. A new survey says Canadians are waiting longer than ever before to see a specialist or to undergo surgery. The study by the Fraser Institute says this year alone, more than 1.2 million Canadians are waiting for procedures in 10 provinces. The wait times are 27.4 weeks, which is the longest in nearly 30 years. The think tank's report this year found that wait time is 195% longer than the median wait time of 9.3 weeks back in 1993 and longer than the 25.6 weeks in 2021. Ontario had the shortest wait time reported at 20.3 weeks, while Prince Edward Island had the longest at 64.7. The report collected data from January 10th through September 15th of this year. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says the federal government needs to do more to address the healthcare crisis here in our country. Singh says the Trudeau government must negotiate a deal with the provinces and territories for more healthcare funding. He says the situation is especially dire at children's hospitals across the country.
In Alberta, I visited and spoke with healthcare workers, and they shared stories of how in Calgary, at the children's hospital, because the demand is so high, there are trailers set up outside the children's hospital to deal with the excess demand. Children have died in Alberta or in BC. And in Ottawa, the Red Cross has had to be called in to children's hospitals. We are faced with a serious crisis. Parents are dealing with, and children are dealing with, agonizing wait times where having a child unable to breathe for any amount of time is heartbreaking. And that is something that parents are going through right now across the country. And we know that healthcare workers are burnt out, are pushed to the limit. These are people who care deeply about their patients, who care deeply about people, and are feeling like they're unable to do their work because they're so understaffed and under-resourced.
Ontario's health minister announced that the province is investing more than $20 million towards operating costs to add 27 MRI machines in hospitals across Ontario. Sylvia Jones also talked about the strain facing pediatric hospitals in Ontario amid the ongoing surge in respiratory illnesses. Jones discusses how some patients had to be flown out of their region by air ambulance when certain hospitals were already at capacity.
When we have high numbers of pediatric patients, primarily because of the virus season that we are experiencing this winter, we have the opportunity through air ambulance, Orange, to make sure that where there is capacity within the Ontario health system, we get that access to the patient as quickly as possible. Look, I get it. It's not ideal as a family to have a child that far away, but it is also important to appreciate that by doing that air transport, that child was able to be assessed and treated sooner.
Well, it was a chilly start to the work week here in southwestern Alberta with periods of light snow once again. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, don't put the shovel away just yet, as there's more of the white stuff in the forecast for our region this week.
Yeah, keep those shovels handy because it is December after all in Alberta, which means that there's going to be more snow eventually along the way. Like this evening, we are looking at another 60% chance of flurries overnight with an overnight low of -16. Going to feel more like -20 though with that wind chill. Clearing up overnight though, and into Tuesday, we're looking at a nice clear sunny day, high of -9. But later on in the week, we will be seeing more snowfall coming our way. So definitely keep those shovels handy. I'll be back later on in the show to give you all those details.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. While we deal with snow and cooler temperatures across much of southwestern Alberta, another blast of winter is headed for southern Saskatchewan this week. A Colorado low developing in the northeastern U.S. is expected to hit Regina, southern Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Environment Canada says it will be a slow-moving system which will drop quite a bit of snow on the region. Senior climatologist David Phillips says the mercury will also drop by quite a bit next week once the snow moves on. You know, Christmas is fast approaching, and usually it's a time to sit down, enjoy a beautiful meal, and spread some holiday cheer with our loved ones. Unfortunately, that's not the reality for many families here in Lethbridge. Food banks across Canada have experienced over 1.5 million visits in March of 2022 alone. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains now, an initiative by the Real Canadian Superstore in Lethbridge called the Holiday Food Drive is looking to support our local food banks in a very big way.
So we started in 2008, and yeah, ever since then we've been doing it.
For 14 years now, Real Canadian Superstores from across Canada have taken part in the Holiday Food Drive in support of their local food banks. Here in Lethbridge, staff from the store say this initiative is vital during the holiday season, and you can give a monetary or food donation that will be put to a good cause.
We're a huge part of this community, and we have so many people that come to our store, and to be able to provide that awareness as well as that gateway to be able to donate, right? Everyone's so busy this time of year, and it's just a good reminder to them, you know, the reality of what's going on.
According to the 2022 Hunger Count report released by Food Banks Canada, right here in Alberta, there has been a 29% increase in food bank visits since 2019, and just under 49% of those were families. Officials from the Interfaith Food Bank in Lethbridge say issues like inflation have increased the number of people coming into the food bank every month.
At holiday time, we want to come together, we want to share meals together, and so it's particularly important that we're able to make everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Over at the Lethbridge Food Bank, Christmas food hampers are being given out. Staff from the organization say the donations for the Holiday Food Drive will be put toward next year's hampers, and there are food items that are still needed if you're in the Christmas spirit.
Pastas, dry goods, canned fruit and vegetables, canned meats, beans and pasta. All those things are really important for us. Craft dinner is always a big favorite amongst our clients.
The Holiday Food Drive will run at the Real Canadian Superstore until December 24th. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Christmas cards are being dropped off to those in need to ensure there will be big smiles on faces this Christmas holiday season. Organizers of the Holiday Card Drive say they have handed out over 6,000 cards this year, smashing their goal of 5,000. The cards are distributed out to seniors, veterans, and community members who are in need of a pick-me-up. Dacia Munton, the founder of the Card Drive, says this is essential in helping out seniors in our community who are facing isolation and loneliness.
My best friend who is a part of this with me, she is a nurse in a long-term care facility, and she said they have residents who still have their cards up from last year and they just treasure it because, again, for many of them, this is the only card that they receive from anybody. They don't have family, they don't have friends, and so it's huge for them. And others that who are in the dementia ward or the Alzheimer ward, like, they think these are cards from their grandkids or their family members, and she said their faces just light up because to them, like, someone is thinking of them.
Last year, there were over 3,300 cards delivered to members of our community. And if you'd like to participate, you can drop off a card until December the 16th at the Western Stockman and at Sisters Pub and Grill here in Lethbridge. A few players from the Lethbridge Hurricanes were able to give back to kids in a very special way on Monday. Teddy bears that were thrown on the ice during the Canes' annual Toque and Teddy Bear Toss on Friday were handed out to kids in the afternoon at the Audiology and Children's Allied Health Services unit. Now, a goalie for the Lethbridge Hurricanes, Brian Thompson, says they haven't been able to give back to the kids in a few years, so this was extra special.
Helping the community and the kids it's an awesome feeling. It really puts into perspective what we do this for. It's a great cause, and to be able to bring a little bit more joy into the children's lives in the holiday season, it's a good feeling.
An official with Alberta Health Services say the bears are useful as they help a child who may be going through a difficult time during a hospital visit.
Specifically a youth, while they're going through a difficult time, hospitalization can be really stressful, increased anxiety. Just the ability to give the teddy bear helps calm everyone's nerves, normalize the hospital experience a little bit, and make it a little bit more palatable for the family to be in hospital.
Over 5,000 bears and a large number of toques were collected during Friday's contest. A group of Edmonton firefighters is planning a trip to Ukraine to take equipment and help train first responders there. Firefighter Aid Ukraine, a charity in our provincial capital, has assembled a group of translators and firefighters who will share life-saving skills with their Ukrainian counterparts in the new year. The group will teach a version of the NATO standard Tactical Combat Casualty Care course. Officials say it is important since new Ukrainian first responders have stepped up to serve for the first time when the war in Ukraine began last February. U.S. officials say Russia is providing military assistance to the Islamic Republic of Iran. That includes helicopters and fighter jets. In exchange, Russia wants ballistic missiles from Iran to help in its war in Ukraine. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says this is not a surprise since Russia is running out of dance partners.
It's not surprising when the list of credible or potential partners keeps shrinking for the Russians. And of course, the Iran regime looking also at a very short list of potential global partners. So it makes for very, very natural allies and of course, needing one another. Russia needing weapons right now in a very dire situation with their invasion in Ukraine, and the Iran regime needing a lifeline as hundreds of thousands of people continue to pour out onto the streets in the third month of protests against the regime there.
Foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will also have more details of the recent U.S.-Russia high-profile prisoner swap coming up later in our show. Newtown, Connecticut residents share their feelings about the 10th anniversary of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting and look for a peaceful future. Locals say the mass shootings in the United States must end.
It has to become better with fewer shootings. I mean, I think it's in the last 10 years, one of the numbers I've seen is that we're at 1 million people impacted by gun violence. You know, this year alone, I think we're already over 40,000 deaths. It's the #1 cause of death for children under the age of 19. We're averaging 2 mass shootings a day. These acts of violence are preventable, and that we all have a role in doing something about it, supporting legislation, but also just changing the way we engage in this issue and act when we see warning signs and signals.
The Sandy Hook school shooting took place December 14th of 2012 when a 20-year-old shot and killed 26 people. 20 of the victims were 6- and 7-year-old children. The gunman later died by taking his own life. Meanwhile, more violence broke out in Afghanistan as a shelling killed 6 people near a Pakistani border town.
په دا ځای د ګولۍ وموښتلې تقریبا 15 نفره په شهادت رسېدلي دي 22 تنې زخمیان دي د خلکو پټوګان پراته دي دا رقم دا ویرونه رایله کړي دي نو موږ د دواړو حکومتو څخه دا خواست کوو چې جنګ ودرېږي نور نو دلته قبایلي علاقې دي رش ډېر دي موږ خواست کوو چې دا جنګ ودرېږي.
Protests in Peru turned deadly over the weekend as thousands of people gathered across the country demanding the resignation of their newest president, Dina Boluarte. Many are also demanding the release of ousted President Pedro Castillo, who was arrested and charged with rebellion.
No tienen nada de valor ustedes, golpistas. Mi pueblo de Apurímac está luchando en pie de lucha por este pueblo. Señora Dina Boluarte, le pido que renuncie. Cierre del Congreso, vayámonos todos.
Wow. Well, it was cold and snowy in many parts of southwestern Alberta again today, and the snow will be sticking around for most of the week. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. Well, it's a blanket of white here in Lethbridge as we saw a couple of centimeters of the white stuff again. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, those winter tires will come in handy this week as even more snow is in the forecast?
Yeah, absolutely they will, because we are expecting more flurries this evening as well as later on in the week. As I was saying earlier, 60% chance of flurries overnight with an overnight low of -16, feeling like -20 with that wind chill. -9 the high for Tuesday with nice sunny clear skies. And then on Wednesday, we're seeing periods of snow for both Wednesday and Thursday, actually, with a high of -4 for both days. So going to warm up a bit there. -8 the high for Friday with the sunny skies. And we're looking at 60% chance of flurries again on Saturday with a high of only -11. Down to -17 on Sunday, though, with a mix of sun and cloud. Okay, so the average high for this time of year is 0, and it seems like we haven't been anywhere near there lately. Average low -12. The high on this day back in 1962, that was the record. It was 13 degrees, and it was a freezing -33 back in the year 2000. That was the record low. Sun rose this morning at 8:19. Sunset this afternoon at 4:31 p.m. and that gives us only 8 hours and 12 minutes of daylight. We are getting very close to that winter solstice coming up very soon. 5 degrees in Victoria tomorrow. Victoria also looking at a chance of showers early in the morning and then clearing up later in the day. 3 degrees in Vancouver. Patches of fog dissipating later on in the day. -7 the high in Edmonton with sunny skies, and Calgary warming up significantly as well with a high of only -1 with partly cloudy skies. -13 the high in Saskatoon tomorrow. -8 in Regina. Regina seeing a 60% chance of flurries. Mainly overcast skies in Winnipeg on Tuesday with a high of -1, and of course a little bit chillier with that wind chill. As we get into the central part of the country, Toronto seeing a high of -1 with mainly sunny skies. Ottawa looking at overcast skies. -6 the high and -3 the high in Montreal with a mix of sun and cloud. Going to feel a little bit chillier than that though with that bit of wind chill. We're looking at a 15-kilometer-per-hour wind. -3 the high in Fredericton tomorrow. -1 in Halifax. Halifax seeing periods of snow. There is a winter storm watch in effect for Charlottetown, looking at 5 to 10 centimeters of snow tomorrow. Also very windy. Could be expecting up to 80-kilometer-per-hour winds, up to even 100 kilometers along parts of the coast. In Charlottetown there, -1 the high there, and a high of 4 degrees in St. John's tomorrow. Also looking very windy, up to 80K winds. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
Stats Canada says households are seeing their credit market debt rise compared to their household disposable income. In the third quarter, the ratio was 183.3% compared with 182.6% in the second quarter. The agency says that means there was $1.83 of debt for every dollar of disposable income per household. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem gave a speech in Vancouver today. He says he's more worried about not raising interest rates high enough to quell inflation than he is about inflicting more economic pain through higher borrowing costs. His remarks come after the central bank raised its key interest rate by 0.5 percentage point last Wednesday, bringing it to 4.25%, which is the highest rate since 2008. Since March, the Bank of Canada's hiked its rate 7 times in an effort to bring down inflation. The central bank signaled last week that it might be ready to pause its aggressive rate hike cycle. After peaking at 8.1% in July, Canada's annual inflation rate slowed to 6.9% in October. That is still well above the bank's targeted rate of 2%. Pembina Gas Infrastructure is selling its 50% stake in the Key Access Pipeline system in Alberta. Pembina Pipeline owns a 60% share in PGI, with the rest held by global investment fund KKR. The Calgary-based company says PGI will sell the non-operated interest in the pipeline to private equity firm Stone Peak Partners for $662.5 million. The deal is expected to close in the first quarter of 2023, subject to approval by the Commissioner of Competition and other closing conditions. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 72 points on the day to finish at 20,019. The Dow was up 528 points to 34,005. The S&P 500 was up 56 on the day to 3990. And the Nasdaq was up 139 points to 11,143. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 238 to 73.40 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 27 cents to 6.52 U.S. Gold was down 15.89 to 17.8143 U.S. an ounce, and silver was down 16 cents to 23.31 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.19 per bushel, barley's at $9.58, canola's at $19.46, and corn is at $11.63 per bushel. Live cattle were up 73 cents to $154.40. Feeder cattle January contract was down 28 cents to 183.65, and lean hogs were up 38 cents to 81.95. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.35 US. Recapping one of our top stories, a new survey says Canadians are waiting longer than ever before to see a specialist or to undergo surgery. The study by the Fraser Institute says this year alone, more than 1.2 million Canadians are waiting for procedures in 10 provinces. The wait times are 27.4 weeks, which is the longest in nearly 30 years. Russia is looking to the Islamic Republic of Iran for ballistic missiles in its war with Ukraine. But there's a catch, however, and that Iran is looking for something in return. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have details for us shortly. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.